Yes, greetings once again. This is Brother Siayome, and you are tuned into Cosmic Roots Show. Yes, 20 minutes behind the 8 o'clock actual schedule, but you know, time flows, and I'm here now. So, I trust you all are well. My soul brothers and sisters, greetings, warm greetings to you all. Anyway, we're going to get into this evening's this Tuesday's topic. Is going to be a continuation from the previous last Tuesday show, which was about what is archetypes, and I was going into the Animus and the Anima, which is the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves. I was explaining it, but I'm going to go in and continue this and go into more deeply. So just stay tuned, and I'll be back with you shortly. Yes. Yo, greetings, y'all. Yes, I'm gonna play a next tune, but yes, so here we are, Cosmic Root Show. Yes, Just a few things I just want to announce before I get into this topic again. For those of you who are tuning in, maybe through YouTube, like a big shout out to all the listeners right now. If you're tuning in if you need to find another way to tune in because you can't tune into YouTube, you've got www.blessradio.org. You can tune in and online on the internet. And the telephone number to call in when we, if you feel you want to get into this discussion as such, bring your side of stuff into it. That's all good. You can call on 079-444-31366. Now, I'm going to kind of do a little brief synopsis, a recapitulation on what I was discussing last Tuesday. And I'm going to give a little astro cosmic weather forecast, seeing that we're having a new moon tomorrow. And for those of you who do feel the energies as they shift from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to give a little breakdown on that side of stuff before I go deeper into the continuation of the further explanation of, what I was discussing last Tuesday. The exchange of energy through sex, dealing with the feminine relationship that she's going to have with the Animus within herself and the man with the Anima within himself. And explaining about the archetypes, which are basically primordial or prime forces. These archetypes are ruling molds, or molds. When you have a mold and you set something in it, where, well, the archetypes are you can say the original prime structures in consciousness, okay, that exists within nature and also within ourselves, which is why nature is like a mirror to us, based upon the symbolic representation of these archetypes that are in nature, reflecting them back into ourselves, where we feel this trigger of emotions coming up based upon, the way we're relating to the archetype within ourselves. But those, if you want to, clarity on that a little bit more, just tune into the show that I did previously last Tuesday, which is What is Archetypes, okay? Tune into that, and then you can pick up from this show here now, because there's no point me going over, like doing the show again to explain what I was talking about last Tuesday, which I've already done. You should be kind of tuning in and so forth if you're interested enough to kind of, get that clarity. I'm going to play an next tune here. Just let me get this thing clear. All right. Yeah, I'll go play this tune here. So, yeah.
No love at all. Ain't got no love in your heart. Ain't got no love in your heart. Ain't got no love. Ain't got no love in your chart. Ain't got no love. For if you did love your brother,
Yeah. That one is King Tubby. Yes, Rastafari dub on Ain't Got No Love in Your Heart. And if you did, you know. And here's the thing, you know. Love from a lot of the misappropriation, understanding, the programs we have about this thing, you know, what we said, love. Yeah, it's very, actually, a lot of this conditional love and so forth, a lot of stuff is very destructive based on people's emotional securities and stuff. And we call it love, you know, holding on to the security blanket or something as such. Yeah, there's a lot of distortion around that. And I have done some shows earlier on last year dealing with, you know, what is this love? Love is not a verb. They say love's a verb like it's just about the action, but that's a lot about programming, you see? And that gets all manipulative, as I have said before, you know. You know, if you love me, prove it to me. You know, that type of displaced emotional insecurity stuff gets projected onto partners, you know what I mean, onto one another. When we're not dealing with our stuff. But anyway, moving on swiftly, I will just give a little breakdown upon what I was talking about last Tuesday about the Animus and the Anima, because, you know, everything is about relationships and how everything is related and connected to everything else. The truth of the matter is that everything is interconnected, okay? And it's the egocentric identification that we hold or identify with, the superficial psychological identity, is what gives us the impression that we are separate from source and not knowing source. And therefore, under the imprisonment of the superficial psychological emotional identity is what we need to get out of, liberate ourselves from deconditioning the unconscious, our individual unconscious, so we can discover the unconscious self, or the diamond self as it would be called in Buddhism, so we can then you know, be and experience our unique individuality and our unique intrinsic identity, and then express and fulfill why we be incarnated on this plane in the first place, which is to fulfill our soul's purpose and evolutionary intention. Okay, this is the real deal of getting in touch with who we is and dealing about the relationship between the masculine and the feminine, which is actually the archetypes and aspects of our own nature when we are dealing with the man and the woman, okay, external to you. So I was explaining about the Animus and the Anima, and basically, for those who are fresh to this, you know, the Animus and the Anima is symbolic figures of the masculine forces in a woman and the feminine qualities in a man. So if those relationships are not The relationship one is having with oneself is going to be a reflection of the kind of relationship one draws to them in the form of the opposite sex, so to speak, or the complementary opposite as it's supposed to be. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm going to, and I'm going to go into a little bit of the cosmic weather here, because we're in a dark moon right now as we're expecting a new moon in Pisces. Now, a lot of people would say they're not into this stuff or whatever, but you're certainly feeling the energies though. But when we just stay on the superficial level of trying to interpret, you know, the way we want to interpret life, there's a lot of things that basically you ain't able to tune into and assist yourself to guide yourself through the storm, so to speak, or ride the waves, you know, the waves of energies that rise and fall and come forth and intensify, and which are the energies behind a lot of the behavior, a lot of the things that manifest as you see on the outside, whether it's going to be how it's manipulated on the screen of the TV called news. Nothing's new, as they call it. And how, you know, in society as a whole, you know, the behavior of people, groups, individuals, you know, all of this stuff is coming from within, okay? And if you understand how to know that the reality is within you, and it's the activation of various energies within that is being acted out through behavior, you would you know, be more, I would say, informed to manage yourself, know how to manage yourself accordingly, and not get so pulled into the drama of the dunya or the maya, which you're going to see, you know, like, you know, tossing waves, and, you know, like how storms toss ships all over the place, you know what I mean, up and down in the ocean as the waves get high and very turbulent and all of that. Well, you have to know how to navigate yourself through these, you know, turbulent times where, you know, all you can be in tune with or be in charge of is how you respond or react to what is taking place on the big screen outside of yourself. A lot of people are directed and dictated by what they see on the news. You know, as soon as something up, you get certain things get sent to you on WhatsApp. You know, it's just the reaction, how people will react to decisions made in government, or the, you know, the way they are perceiving things based upon allowing external information they're absorbing to dictate to them how they should feel, think, and how they even should perceive themselves. When you're under all of that, you are very under the control, okay, of external authority. You're not really tuned into yourself. And more of the things that you would be thinking are like just program content that's being pumped into your mind, you know, because not a lot of people are really, they're still looking outside themselves for something to save them, in the sense of the programs and the conditionings you've had, you know. But we're dealing with this new moon coming up, and I've been asked to kind of break down a little bit upon it, you see. And even the way, you know, we kind of relate to things coming from not understanding natural law, we identify with even the planets, the moons, the archetypes in a very distorted way, because it's all the programming that's still in the unconscious that needs to be deconditioned, you know. And we're living in a different time, and even the things you see going on around, when you would say degenerative behavior and a whole heap of distortions, getting even more thicker now. The things they want to teach children in school from, you know, 2, 3, you know, in nappies still going to school is quite horrendous. But this is when you're dealing with unnatural law, you see. You're going to try and fill up the children as younger with a lot of distortion to how they're going to relate to themselves, you see. and try to play it as if to say you're doing something to, you know, you're trying to liberate children, you know. And if you're not dealing with natural law and that which reflects cosmic truth, you're dealing with man-made distortion, which, you know, we've been going through for the last 2,000 years, and now the paradigm is shifting and the things are changing, and you need to kind of get yourself in alignment with, you know, your inner growth, man. Your inner growth, you know. You know, who knows it feels it, and who feels it knows it. And, you know, at the same time, many are running in the other opposite direction to themselves. But let me just give you from the soul perspective of what these archetypes, planetary energies are indicating, okay? When we're having things such as new moons, full moons, you know, and the waxing and the waning. What does the moon actually symbolize? What does it correlate to within yourself as an energy, as an archetypal energy within yourself? What is it? Okay? Well, the moon correlates to the soul's current energetic structure. Yes, the soul's current egocentric structure and self-image. So it wasn't energetic, it was egocentric. That's what I meant to say. So the moon correlates with the soul's current egocentric structure and self-image. You know, the moon symbolizes how the current evolutionary intention, meaning the current growth intention of the soul, are given a personal form, self-image. So this is where your ego comes in, you know, gives you a personal self-image, okay? And consciously enables you to consciously integrate and actualize, you know, on a daily basis what we've come in here to really grow and learn through. The emotional security is established through developing a specific self-image and personal form in order to consciously actualize the evolutionary intention for the life. And and also the moon will symbolize how the transition from the past to the future takes place in the present moment in time, relative to pre-existing emotional security patterns. So the moon is related to your personal self-image, you know, the personal form, the self-image, and our emotional security patterns. What does that mean? Well, in past incarnations, we have established certain familiarities with certain things where we draw on our sense of emotional security from, okay? And our emotional security and our personal self-image is what the moon represents. The personal self-image is like the representation or the representative of the soul, but it's not you, it's like your clothes. Your personal self-image, you know, how you dress, how you present yourself. A lot of people would identify with that. Oh, how a person dresses. Oh, you look regal, you look this, you know, but they're not necessarily realizing that it's the wearer of the clothes, which is the true self, not the clothes. You know what I'm saying? That you're projecting this particular image in, you know, or through. So, or the mask, if you want to say, you know what I mean? Who is the, who's behind the mask, you know? Who's the one who's the wearer of the clothes? I'm using this simplifying analogies, okay? To give you what I mean by the moon, all right? The moon and it represents the emotional security, okay? And what do we do for emotional security? A lot of us have externalized this source of emotional security because of, you know, from childhood, you know, from early stages of growth, where we're learning and forming this certain self-image based upon, you know, whether our emotional needs were being provided for by the parent, the mother, the father, or whomever was the, you know, dominant caretaker or guardian or who was around. You know what I mean? And when you're dealing with emotional security issues, when we're young, we formulate these ideas of our source of emotional security coming from the outside, the external, you know, our mother, our father, or whomever, as I said, was the the guardian or the dominant presence. And then we kind of grow up, the body grows, and we may have unresolved emotional issues, okay? Relating to how we feel secure within ourselves, emotionally secure within ourselves or not. So as we grow up, as in the physical form, we may not be maturing emotionally, okay? We may be still, you see, this is what is called displaced emotions when you end up entering into relationships. And these emotional security patterns of the past, holding on to certain things, that this emotional displacement now displaces what has not been, what may not have been provided for us when we were youngsters by the parent. And now that emotionality gets displaced onto the partner you're in a relationship with, right? Or, yeah, it gets displaced upon them. The man do it to the woman do it to the man, as a way of projecting what you haven't resolved within yourself and making the other person responsible for your needs to be met and to feel emotionally secure. Now, basically, you're looking for the partner. I'm not saying this is in all cases, but really another way of saying it is that each one is looking for the partner, the parent them. You know what I'm saying? You see, we get to a point where we have to realize as we grow and mature, we have to be our own parents. We got to parent ourselves. You see what I'm saying? We got to parent ourselves. But you see, when you have emotional displacement because there hasn't been, you're still identifying with the ego, right? The ego self-image, the emotional security patterns that has not been resolved. Relationships just turn into, this conflict and can be an entrapment where you're caught up with, having to be concerned about the other person's needs, yet you want to be free to be you, be you, who you is. So anyway, a lot of this stuff is very it's very deeply rooted in psychological emotional patterns from even previous incarnations, you see. And we come in here to purge our soul from these old past patterns, but a lot of folk also are not interested in their soul. It's only when they get sick and they're ready to die, in a sense, the physical body, you know what I mean, to go back into the dirt. They're like, oh my gosh, that's when you're going to be thinking these things, your soul and where you go after this is important. And you see, that's a real sad state to be, because you come in here because your soul has its purpose. And if you are caught up in your ego personality and all of its emotional, displacement and projections, you're really making things difficult for yourself. But, hey, you got a lot of folk who just think, it's just all about having a good time. Run out in the street, run out in clubs, all this and that. They're trying to distract themselves from really the deeper issues you need to connect to within yourself. A lot of people don't want to be alone, and, to have a relationship with themselves and how, to observe how they relate to themselves. So what you have is a lot of people who are afraid of being alone, distracting themselves by being around whole heap of other folk or with other things. So they stay within the programmed, conditioned mindset and live in this ignorance and perpetuate more suffering for themselves and other folk, because a lot of folk don't get that everything is interconnected. Okay, so they do things ignorantly to the natural laws of causation, cause and effect. And a lot of folk ain't mature enough to take responsibility for their choices, so they blame somebody else when shit goes wrong. Or consequences, fruits coming from the tree, from the plant seed was grown, may be bitter, and then you don't want to take no responsibility for the choices, because you're not looking to understand your life in a deeper way, So why am I saying all of this here? Because what we got going on here with the moon, and the moon symbolizes this, represents Cancer in the astrological chart, which is represented by the mother and its water and its emotions. Okay. And what we having is the moon. We get a new moon in Pisces, 14 degrees, tomorrow. And every time before you have a new moon, you have what is called a dark moon. And basically, the dark is symbolic of the shadow, where a place that isn't lit up, okay, or where the light is not shining directly upon. So the dark is symbolic of the shadow, and in the shadow aspect of what is called the ego is where a lot of those emotional security patterns, which is basically the insecurity, the emotional insecurity, because we're attached. Emotional security comes from what we feel we grab onto or attach to in order to feel secure. You see what I'm saying? And that attachment can become very controlling and fearful, a fear-based attachment to holding on to that you fear losing, because your sense of emotional security is coming from that attachment. And as I said earlier, that gets that starts happening from a child when you're attached to your parents or whomever is the dominant one is supposed to be in care of you. Okay. And you may or may not have been nurtured, emotionally nurtured and loved in a way that made you feel, grow up with a healthy self-image, so to speak. Okay. Feeling emotionally secure in this self-image based upon how you've been, your background and experience from a youngster. So this now is where we look towards the outside as you are dependent as a child on your parent, your father, mother, or whomever is the dominant player in that arena. Okay, whatever your background story is, this stuff is this is how you've been influenced, affected, and so forth. So what happens is that the emotional security patterns that we have adopted, and also from past incarnations, now become where we're holding on to insecurities. Because the emotional patterns which come from familiarity makes people become stuck, like you're holding on to the banks of the river, and while you're holding on to the banks of the river, you can't flow, right, and grow and experience yourself in a more fluid way. There's a holding on and this inability to, because the fear of letting go is coming from the sense of security you're getting from holding on to the bank. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that the emotional security patterns that we have in ourselves in dark, when you have a dark moon, and you're having it in Pisces, which is again now emotions, it's water, it's going to bring up some issues in ourselves, fears, anxieties, which are coming from this false identity, the personal self-image and the emotional securities that hasn't been resolved. Okay, and they're held in the subconscious. Okay, so as I said, you can have displaced emotions where people project the responsibility for the needs they have in themselves, emotional, they project that responsibility onto the other, and it becomes manipulative. Okay, manipulative and all of that business, and people hold on to programs and want others to conform to those programs, and basically sit within a prison with them. Okay, their prison that they're caught up in, they want others to sit down in that prison with them. This is, a lot of it is unconscious, and there's a lot of folk who know what they're doing. You know what I mean? So when you have a dark moon, it's going to bring up all of these feelings. You know, it's going to, because you got to, before you get the new in, you got to get to the, you know, clean out the dregs in the cup, okay? You know, you got to wash out whatever's in there in order to receive new energy. You know, that's why it's a new moon. See what I'm saying? So this new energy in Pisces is how you spiritually develop, okay? How you spiritually grow. So when the moon actually conjuncts the sun, and we have the new moon tomorrow, at the same time, you're going to have Uranus that was in Aries for the last 7-8 years. It's going to go to 0 degrees Taurus. Now, I know some folk may not be really into astrology and stuff, and I'm using this way to kind of explain some dynamics that are happening right here, okay? But it's you know, these dynamics is what's behind everything going on inside of you that gets manifest externally. And also when decisions are made, when governments make certain decisions, you know, put out certain things, even movies get put out, even when to go to war or when to deal with certain financial stuff, you know, the stock exchange, when certain things are going to be announced, you know, put out there to the public from the government. All of this is done on particular times of certain energy alignments. Nothing is done haphazardly and randomly. Okay? It is done on, they're working with the astrology. You know what I mean? They're working with that. And those who still want to be caught up in their program of being afraid of this stuff, and think that it's all nonsense or whatever, yeah, you can go ahead and think like that. But just because you think like that doesn't mean that the stuff has its own effects. It's actually real. Okay? So, you know, you can choose what you want to do. You can be ignorant to something you don't comprehend, or seek to get more understanding about something, you know what I mean, you would want to comprehend, or get a better comprehension of. You see? Rather than being all, you know, you think you know the thing and you don't even know nothing about it. So the times they're putting this stuff out is always correlating with the astrological, the movement of the planets, you know what I'm saying? New moons, full moons, eclipses, you know, transits. You understand? You know, especially when you're dealing with the slow moving planets like Pluto and Uranus, okay, which is just now going to come out of Aries after being in there for, you know, as I said, 6 to 8 years, and where it's going to be in 0 degrees Taurus. Now, what does that mean? Aries is about the intrinsic self-identity, needing freedom and independence to explore and recover one's intrinsic identity. That means the identity that is unconditioned, not the identity that has been conditioned by cultural, societal programming, okay? Which keep people in a certain, you know, suppressed state because they got to fit with the rules, when I say the rules, the beliefs, the values, the, you know, the conditions, the taboos, the customs of whatever cultural, societal, you know, you have, you know, molds you have kind of been born into. So, you know, some places women shouldn't wear no pants, and men have to do certain things like, you know, they don't clean up the house, they don't do the cooking, they just do maybe some harder stuff, or, you know what I mean, chop the wood or whatever. The point is that in different cultures you have, you know, gender allocations that men do this, women do that, you know. Men exercise, women ain't supposed to do none of that. They're supposed to be at home or cleaning out the house or tending to the children, you know, tending to the food. You know, those things. You have cultures that have allocated roles, basically, specifically to men and specifically to women. Depending on the culture, the society, you know what I'm saying, their values that you're born into. This is what I'm talking about, the conditioning, the programming, okay? So a lot of us are dealing with this superficial psychological identity, psychological emotional identification with the programming, and therefore are not able or feel restrained, limited to expressing who they truly are behind all of that gunk. You see what I mean? And it can be fearful, scary to be different, because you're going to get judged. You're going to get, you may get ridiculed, judged, set upon, because this emotional security in the past, you see, makes a lot of people very fearful if someone does something different to what they, where they're getting their sense of rules and so forth from. People can be very insecure when they're not secure within themselves to do with who they really are. And when they see somebody being more freer or somebody else kind of stepping away from that, it can give other people an impetus to be, have the courage to take on that stance, look in and ask questions and kind of, assist themselves to liberate and decondition their unconscious from these programs. Or you just stay conditioned and follow suit with the program, you see. But when you're doing that, you are not really being who you truly are from the soul perspective, because the soul is who you is and what you is. You are an individualized extension of source itself. But you see, there's all of these programmings and conditioning preventing people from tapping in and expressing their true identity and their true unique individuality. Okay, it's all this conformity. So to man-made beliefs, stuff that don't even line up with natural law. You see what I mean? That reflects universal truth. So people's self-concept become what they begin to experience. And that self-concept is usually based in fear, separation, and very dogmatic. You know what I mean? A lot of people will come out against you if you step on a different, you want to say, listen, man, I want to step my path. I want to step on my path. I don't want to be caught up in this programming. And you get a lot of people feel threatened by that, you see. So what does it mean having Uranus and Aries for the last 7-8 years? Is that Aries is about the freedom and independence to recover and discover one's true intrinsic identity, unique intrinsic natural identity. And a lot of that in many people have been suppressed based upon the conditioning, okay? And the emotional fear to what would happen if they was to step in, if they were to do so. So this emotional insecurity and fear of authority based upon, the conditioning and the program external to you is what has been suppressing a lot of people from finding and discovering their true self. Okay. So for the last 7-8 years, Uranus has been liberating people from their programming, their conditioning, giving them the strength the courage to question things. Why do they think the way they think? Why do they hold the values the way they do? Is these values very intrinsic to themselves? Do they really agree with it? Is it something that's resonant in harmony with your essential self? Or is it basically your programming, your cultural, societal conditioning? Okay? Is it just stuff you're going along with because, this is what you have been programmed to how to see yourself? You see what I mean? So during the last 8 years, there has been a deconditioning of the individual unconscious. And that has been making people associate with themselves in a very different way. Certain people have been breaking away from, rebelling against various rules and regulations of what they've been born into. Okay? And it has been for the purpose to discover who they really are. So with the new moon entering into Pisces, what you're having is it's about having a new look at yourself. A new look at yourself and how you're approaching your spiritual growth and development. Or have you been caught up in delusions because you've been projecting certain ideals outside, you're looking for certain meaning outside of yourself and getting disappointed when certain things don't seem to, keep up with your expectations of what you're projecting upon it. A lot of this delusion, starts to take place. You got a lot of with this delusion comes obviously confusion, right? And because it's forced beliefs, you know, when we can only find the ultimate meaning within ourselves, within the soul. You see, so Pisces can be delusional when they're projecting, looking for this ultimate meaning outside of themselves and not realizing that it can only be found within their soul, within themselves. And so how are you going about your spiritual growth and development? Is it just keep going to these classes, which isn't about liberating and deconditioning you from all these egocentric spiritual stuff? Because Pisces is about really the dissolving of the barriers, the egocentric, emotional, physical, and spiritual barriers that which prevents the individual from having a conscious or realizing their conscious connection to what is called source, the creator. Okay? So they look for the power outside of themselves. They're looking for ultimate meaning outside of themselves, when the ultimate meaning and the true source of power can only be found within. Okay? So what happens with the emotional security now, when that is still being projected outside from childhood, you're still dealing with displaced, and now you're a grown person, or grown individual, you're dealing with displaced emotions. And you're projecting this to be the responsibility of the other person or the partner that you're trying to have a relationship with, or you're not even having a harmonious relationship with yourself. And because a lot of people just see themselves as flesh, blood, and bone, they don't realize the energy that they're setting up within inside of themselves, the vibration they're setting up inside of themselves, which correlates with the way they relate to their own selves, and their emotional security patterns that are being, which is the emotional security patterns that are dependent upon something external to provide. You see what I mean? This sense of emotional security within yourself. This is where things are going to get very, turbulent, because it's about, as we are growing up, we are going to come to the point where we have to realize we have to parent ourselves. Parent ourselves. Because there's certain things you're being deprived from, or you feel you're being deprived from, and it will make you feel like you're a victim. You see, Pisces can be all victimized as well. They're the victim, because not taking responsibility for their emotional well-being, you see, and their responsibility to get in touch with the source within themselves. So, you get a duality in the expression or higher and lower octave of the archetypes and planetary energies. And, we are polarity. We got polarities within ourselves. The masculine and the feminine, they're polarities within ourselves. But we're talking about forces, not, this physical gender that, you're defining yourself by your body, and your body's supposed to represent the entirety, your entire identity. These are, it's like your clothes. People kind of identify with their clothes and don't realize there's more to you behind all of that superficial, psychological stuff. You're clothing your mind with. Yeah. So with this new moon, usually with the dark moon we're in now, there's gonna be turbulence, going on, and emotional stuff's gonna come up of insecurities and fears that you may start flipping out with. Certain things have been announced with what this Brexit stuff, and what they're, how that makes people react, to what they're seeing out there outside of themselves. All of these things, to the government announcing that they want to teach neutral gender in school. They got another term. What's this called? Gender fluidity. You know what I mean? So you're not a boy or a girl, children. You can choose whether you're going to be masculine or feminine, male, female, when you reach a certain, 15 or something. It's just, look, man, you're dealing with society. This is why I talk about egocentricity. When you're dealing with your self-image, when you're identifying with your body and your self-image and your just the gender of the masculine and feminine vehicle you're in, if this is what you think you are, you're going to get very distorted. Okay, and this is what they're doing, because they're not dealing with no spirituality in this, not dealing with your soul. You see what I'm saying? For you to understand that's who you is, and this is where you find the balance, okay, and your healing and your resolutions for the emotional turbulence you're having. You know what I mean? With identity. You all right? But if you get caught up identifying with the physical body and think, oh, because you're in a, this is all touchy and stuff, because a lot of people got their ideas, which is based in natural law, right? That reflects universal truth. They're dealing with, concoctions from human concepts and ideologies that they want to defend, which is distorted, keeps you in a distorted relationship with yourself. And that will lead into, slow destruction of you, because you're not stepping in harmony with that which, supports the integrity of who you are, So, a lot of people are identifying with their physical form and whether they're a man or a woman, just like you identify with your clothes. All right. And you think that that's all that makes you up, that defines who you, the entirety of who you are. But anyway, all of this stuff is there intentionally coming out to confuse. And they put these things out at particular times where the planets are moving into signs and, alignments and various cycles. Okay. They do this. Nothing's haphazard. They know. So if you don't know, you're just going to be programmed again and again and again, because you're reacting to the theatrics, the pantomime play. You know what I mean? Called news and, all this stuff you still program with, believing you're, taking in how other people perceive you, based on race and all of this stuff in the history. And you're just holding on to these lies, and you expect others to let go of them before you can. You need to realize that it's about the deconditioning of your unconscious here, to liberate you from this prison of lies, prison, this illusionary prison, okay, or the prisons of illusions you're creating for yourself based upon the programs you want to keep following and not delete, in yourself, and think it's someone else's responsibility to do that for you. All right. Or somebody else must change before you can change. Change always takes place from the inside out. So we're going to have this, with this new moon happening in Pisces, and then we're going to have this, Mercury retrograde going through Pisces. It means that if you stay caught up in your logical, egocentric identification, you're going to get very confused and blurry, and, a whole heap of stuff can be, see people acting out their affairs and their illusions, okay, and their delusions, you see, coming from the emotional security patterns that they're still projecting outside of themselves, looking for the external, something external to bring them this emotional security, okay. But you see, emotional security has to become internalized. This is why I'm saying you have to come to parenting yourself. Some folk is all 50, 40, still kind of whining over certain things that happened when they were a child. I'm talking about, emotional nurturing or non-nurturing that they did or didn't get. And dependent upon, this external source, to give them this this sense of security. Hence why the moon, funny enough, actually rules Cancer, Cancerian sign, and Cancer is about the mother, and it's also about the family. Okay, and you can get people who are very attached to this family for their external sense of security. And you see, this is the thing here. This attachment leaves you, means that you're not emotionally secure in yourself. Your emotional security comes from and is dependent upon your attachment and control over, family members, children, and, maybe parents having control over the children, or the child just won't let go of the, the apron and all of that business. And people grow up big in big bodies and still have these infantile emotional states, you see. And then they go into relationships and project, this emotional displacement on the other, okay? And, it just creates a whole heap of madness. And this is what people think is relationships and think is love. You know what I mean? Codependency. You know what I mean? You're just there because you're depending on one another. If you were free and independent in your own identity, knowing yourself, you wouldn't be in certain situations like that because it's not for you. But because of codependency and emotional need for security and to feel needed, people get stuck in these, they're just, these type of what you call relationships. So it's just, it's now about, stop looking and depending outside for these certain emotional states to be met, on the outside. You have to internalize emotional security. You have to go into yourself and deprogram, question yourself, because the conditioning is quite strong, and they manipulate you from this conditioning. Okay, they manipulate you. So the moon representing Cancer, dealing with the family, and then opposite that is Capricorn, which is the father, which represents the authority and limits and bounds, boundaries. And as I said, you always there is a counterfeit version of what is natural. Okay, so the counterfeit version of the Capricorn and the Cancerian is where we get stuck onto the breasts and you want to lift it. Some people say that men are attracted to women's breasts because of this mother thing, which is the anima in the man. Okay, when it is not when you're not looking within yourself to nurture yourself, emotionally nurture yourself from within. If you're still caught up with mother issues, you see what I'm saying? The anima issue with the man, then you're that keeps men infantile and emasculates them. You know what I mean? Some women are attracted to men who represent their weak, the inferior, or you want to use that word because, people have these triggers because of words. But, a woman could be attracted to a man in a wheelchair or a man, a weak, maybe, because he represents this weak aspect of her relationship she's having with her inner animal, her inner animus, the masculine. So you get this woman, she could be attracted to weak men in that sense, they're incapacitated in some way. And that brings out and gives her this, the mother, you see, now the anima, the mother love type of thing here. But you see, you get some women, they need to keep children a certain way or attracted certain men who are a certain way because they, they're going to find some kind of security in having a man that's not going to be so free to get up and, be so virile and, independent. Okay, gives her, it's like when you get some parents who don't want their children to be too independent because they are living their life out through those children. They're like the children are just an extension of their ego. So if the children get too independent, if the boy, then that's, that prods a level of insecurity inside of them because they're deriving their sense of identity from all of this. You see what I mean? And so it becomes manipulating. You manipulate someone that you're emotionally dependent upon in order for them to never go too far away from you because they're always going to be depending and needing you for something, or you get caught up on needing to be needed. These are all the emotional security pattern issues, you see? So that's what the moon represents. So that energy in yourself, and this stuff is subconscious, so, but you have to be the one to consciously, make the choice to deprogram yourself from these dysfunctional type of ways, So they show and play themselves out, okay, in these different ways, but it's usually obviously within the relationships because we draw to ourselves, reflections of the relationships we're having with ourselves. A lot of us are looking outside of ourselves and don't realize that all your relationships are actually reflections of the relationship, the kind of relationship you're having or not having with yourself. So what kind of relation do you want to have with yourself determines what kind of relationships you draw to you. And yeah, and you see the thing with this here now, you know, it goes deeper because I'm just looking for something that I had written up on my phone here, because this thing goes very deep, because you attract into your life a reflection of what you think. You don't want to realize how, you know, as I said, a lot of people want to see themselves as just flesh, blood, and bone. But you're not flesh, blood, and bone. You're not just flesh, blood, and bone. Like you're not just the house you live in or the clothes you wear. You are more so vibrational energy, frequency, waves, and tones, yo. And, you know, your thoughts are electric and your emotions are magnetic. You are energy and vibrational. And you have a relationship with this infinite ocean of consciousness, this entire field of consciousness, of energy surrounding you, okay? And is in you and surrounds you. And what happens is that what you are setting up as an inner vibration within yourself is what then externally materializes around you, or vibrationally resonates. You begin to vibrationally resonate, okay? And magnetically draw to you that which is on a similar frequency. Now, you know, this is not just science stuff. This is actually what's been going on all the time. And in times of antiquity, there was a closer knowing about this. But, you know, during the last 2,000 years, when we have been taught about separation, and in the era of Pisces, the delusion and separation and victimization and all of that type of stuff, victims and perpetrators and all of that, that was the time of the dark aspect of, or the shadow aspect of Pisces, okay? So these are the energies that people still have in their unconscious, and that needs to get deconditioned, you know, because we're moving into, is about inwardness. It's not space is the final frontier out there, like Captain J. Kirk. You're out there looking, you know, you've gone into the earth, you've gone into the oceans, you've gone up to the mountains, you've gone into the bush and the jungle, you've killed up this, you've done searching in here and there, and now you're going out into outer space, and you're out there still trying to go further and further out, searching for what? What, the ultimate meaning of life, the truth? And the thing is that you're not going to find it out there. The ultimate meaning can be only found within your soul, within you. And you find that that journey, a lot of people seldom, you know, want to take on and do, you see? And sometimes you're forced. More times people are forced to do this. And if people are used to being in a relationship, and they're using a relationship to kind of be like a security blanket for them, when the relationship's over and they're forced to be by themselves, man, give them 7 days and they're freaking out. No, man. And they're rushing out to go and find another relationship, not to connect and relate, but actually motivated from this fear of being alone and having to face what comes up while they're alone, okay? For them to, instead of seeing it as a grand opportunity to actually purge, a grand opportunity to get into a better relationship with themselves, so they can actually know themselves, realize what type of ideas and beliefs they got going on, and you know what's working for them and what's not, and what they want to kind of hold on to what they want to get rid of. You see what I mean? What they want to change inside. This takes place when you take time with yourself. A lot of folks are scared for that. They don't want to do that. They're scared. You know what I mean? They'll put it off. They'll project, deflect, you know? So when people come into relationships, you got to be careful. Why? Why? You know, why? What's motivating them? What's motivating you? You got to know that for yourself, you know? So when I'm saying, you know, you attract into your life reflections of what you think, but you also attract into your life what you judge. And we got a lot of judgment, okay? And, you know, and some people get kind of funny about, you know, we say we're not supposed to judge, but look, man, everybody judges, you know, so we, you know, nothing wrong with judging. And the thing is, it's like, you know, judging is different to discernment. Discernment is also, judging is also different to discrimination. To discriminate, to know how to discriminate, to discern. You see what I'm saying? Judgment is not the same as discernment. And, you know, of course you can judge. But then, you know, judge as long as you're prepared to be judged. You see what I'm saying? Because judgment is basically giving unequal values and weights and measures to things. You see? So you're judging something greater or lesser from the way you judge yourself. You see what I mean? Because all judgment starts within you, and you're projecting that externally. You see what I'm saying? And then you don't want someone to judge you, but you're projecting your own ass judgments out there, you know, because you judge the way you're judging yourself. So we attract into our life a reflection of what we think, but we also attract into our life, you know, that which we judge. And if you think people are dishonest, you attract dishonest folk. You know what I mean? You get, oh my gosh, you know, and you do see this correlating, you know what I mean? But we think that, oh, they're a victim, and you know, listen, man, you get people that's all they very, very suspicious because they got issues with trust within themselves. And you know, you hear this a lot with women. Oh, you know, I want somebody who's an honest man, you know, but you believe, while you're saying that, you have a strong belief that men are dishonest, okay? Or people are dishonest. So because you hold that, you'll attract people who are dishonest to you. You see how it goes, because that's the vibrational frequency you're tuning into. That's what you're saying, you know, here's the match. I'm a match for that, you know. So, you know, so if you're focused on sickness or disease, you'll attract more of the same thing you're focused on. If you're focused on poverty or lack, you will gain nothing more than the empty bank account as such. Everything you hold in your conscious thought becomes your cage or reality, you see, or your cage and your reality, because it can be a cage and that cage becomes your reality based upon what you're holding in your consciousness. But if you keep thinking you're just flesh, blood, and bone, and you think that what your thoughts and your feelings don't have any impact on the reality you experience or the quality of life that you end up having or not having, then this is where the ignorance is no longer going to be bliss. Yeah, because sometimes the whole thing, you hear this thing about ignorance is bliss. And it's temporary. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't, you know, even though you don't know. If you know better, you do better. You understand? But we're living in a time where it's like, as I said many, many times before, if you're ignorant, to be ignorant is now a choice. It's not something that, oh, well, people are manipulating you and keeping you ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Yes, that has been, you know, the good 2,000 odd years going on. But we're living in a different paradigm. And now to be ignorant is because you choose to. Because of some kind of laziness, you know. You can't even pick up your finger and just say, man, what was the word he said? Oh, what did he say? Etymology? What does he say? Polarity? What was that? What does he say? Huh? Oh, let me just Google that. What's the meaning of such and such? Pow. You can get into more understanding now. You see what I mean? But some folk don't even want to do that. You know, and your phone is a mini computer. So there you go. So, you know, everything, you know, you hold on to in your conscious thought becomes your cage and your reality. So, you know, it sounds cliche because we're hearing a lot of this stuff about law of attraction and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? A lot now. But, you know, if you see abundance, you know, so to see abundance, see honesty and all, embrace good. That's what it's basically to say, you know, what you see. If you see abundance in yourself, then you'll be drawing more of that. If you're seeing poverty and suffering and stuff, because a lot of this is programming, man. People want to hold on to. You know, we just got to be real with this. A lot of it is programming. You know, so a lot of stuff is coming from the emotional insecurity patterns that we still ain't dealing with. And this new moon, this dark moon is bringing up some stuff. And this new moon is saying, look, man, a new way of looking at of how you're going about your spiritual growth and development. Okay. And the new way of looking at yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because Uranus has been in Aries for the last 8 years. And now it's moving into Taurus. But it's going to go to about 6 degrees. And then by July, yeah, it's going to retrograde back again. But I think by July, it's going to be fully into, you know, taking its position into Taurus and not retrograding back into Aries. So that means we've completed a cycle, you hear? And when you're completing a cycle, that means a new cycle comes in. So you can't go about doing the same thing in the same way. All right? So you're going to find that the way you perceive yourself is changing, and the way you want to go about or what you feel you want to be doing and what you find is value, you know, true to you, you're going to find a lot of this is changing. You know, you're going to find you may have to kind of heal the wounded identity that has been suppressed because of, you know, conditioned, programmed conformity, cultural, societal, you know what I mean? That type of stuff. So I think I've gone kind of long into this weather forecast because I just want to kind of give a brief synopsis on it. And this is the mood, you see. And then you're going to have Mercury retrograding back into Pisces. And you got Jupiter in Sagittarius, and you got Neptune in Pisces. You know, and, you know, Mercury correlates with the nature of our intellectual framework, you know, or structure, and the nature of the information that we collect. That's Mercury. And I did do a talk about, you know, Gemini and Sagittarius the other day, dealing with the intellect and the intuition, and how Gemini is about, you know, the intellect and how you derive information from the outer. Okay. And I did touch on how Mercury also correlates with Virgo, which is where, you know, Virgo operates more with an internal, you know, introspection, okay, or self-analysis. But Virgo can get caught up in negativity of, you know, too much self-criticism, you know what I'm saying? Too much self-judgment, you know what I'm saying? You know, that mercurial thing. But really, when you're dealing with Mercury, you're dealing with kind of the logical way of processing information, or the information that you already got in your mind that you may be identifying with, and now these are your beliefs, and you know, and you're not thinking too good about who you are, and there needs to be a deconditioning of the mind of that information you got in there, because a lot of it is obsolete and a lot of it is just being programmed based upon, you know, conditioning. So Mercury going in retrograde now through Pisces is saying that your logical mind is not going to be able to work out this stuff. You need to get into more of the right brain, more into the intuition. You need to let go of these solidified so-called labels and identification that you're using to define yourself and others, and how you're going about your spiritual growth and development may not be really natural for you, in the sense that you cannot be holding on to these egocentric, emotional, physical, and spiritual barriers that prevents you from consciously realizing your oneness with the source. And Pisces represents the impulse in consciousness to transcend these limitations and boundaries. It's the impulse in consciousness to transcend time and space. Okay? Time and space. Because who you are is beyond time and space. When you're identifying with time and space, you entrap yourself within time and space. You're identifying with that which changes, like forms and places, you know, and persons, you know, persons. A lot of people want to be a person and not wake up to realize their soul self, because a person is a mask, persona. You see what I mean? And I find a lot of folk, that's what they want to defend. You chat about soul, they'll say, yeah, but the persona is the soul. How can a persona be the soul? How can your clothes be you? Are you the clothes, or are you the wearer of the clothes? Now, you know the answer to that for yourself. So it's the same thing. How can the soul be the persona? Yeah? So you get a lot of people want to hold on to this persona stuff and don't, you know, they're afraid of themselves. They don't want to deal with the soul. Because that means you're going to have to now open up your mind and start to look into these belief systems you've been carrying. Okay? And Pisces is about how you spiritually grow and develop, and the ability to transcend the barriers, the egocentric barriers, the emotional, physical, spiritual barriers based on egocentric identification. So you can dissolve, it's like, you know, dissolve those illusions. So you can consciously realize your oneness with the source creator of all that is, with universal consciousness. You see what I mean? Because universal consciousness is the creator of all that is, including the creator. You know what I'm saying? Because really what you call source isn't the creator, it's the source of where creation, all creation itself. You see what I mean? You're the one who's choosing what aspect of creation you want to experience. That's why you're the creator. You see what I'm saying? And source is the source of you, your creative power and ability, because source is the actual source of creation itself. You know? So Mercury retrograde is going to bring up certain things where you're going to have to dissolve this ego. You see? And if not, you know, if you go project your illusions and stuff, you're going to see more of that maybe coming up during the retrograde, the Mercury retrograde going back into Pisces. and then conjunct with Neptune again. So you're going to have Jupiter, and with Jupiter is in Sagittarius for the rest of this year, and you got Neptune in Pisces. Now, Jupiter being in Sagittarius, and I was talking about, you know, the importance of intuition correlating to Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius is governed by Jupiter, and Jupiter correlates to our, how can I say, the structure of the soul's, if I use the word belief system here, because beliefs, no matter what people want to say about beliefs, it's your beliefs which are determining how you interpret life itself. So there's the beliefs that you've been taken on through the, you know, the mind you've absorbed in your consciousness from the outside. But you got a structure of the soul, a knowledge system, okay, which you can say a belief system or belief structure. What structured that structure, that belief structure of the soul, because your soul has been living life after life after life, y'all. Okay, your soul existed even before the creation of the universe. So your soul has a lot of knowledge within itself. So, but the soul also has to unburden itself from a lot of the illusions it has also held on to through, you know, erroneous choices made by the personality during various incarnations, which has set up cause and effect, because you're dealing with natural law. Okay, so Jupiter in Sagittarius is all about wanting to know one's connection to the greater picture, to the larger whole. That larger whole is the universe, right? So we are the microcosm within a macrocosm. Okay, so Jupiter correlates to, as I said, the belief structure of the soul, and how our beliefs determine how we interpret life itself, and how Jupiter symbolizes actually the philosophical and metaphysical and cosmological, okay, context in which, you know, it gives life, and how we are to comprehend ourselves. How can I say this again and make it more clearer? Beliefs are the determinant to how we interpret life itself. And Jupiter symbolizes the philosophical, metaphysical, or cosmological context which it gives to life. Okay? So a lot of us are not comprehending ourselves in a philosophical, metaphysical, cosmological context. So therefore, you don't see the bigger picture of who and what you is. Okay? And then you're holding on to limited belief systems about spirituality, and that may get caught up to be transformed, okay, through transcending the limitations of those beliefs, while Mercury is retrograding back into Pisces, and you're gonna have a lot of this egocentric and these beliefs being brought up to be reviewed, okay? And you may feel you're going through a time of confusion during this period of retrograde, or you may find yourself coming through with more clarity, yeah, and able to step away from, drop certain, you know, ideologies more easily because you get more clearer. Depends how you are going to experience it, but this is the energies, this is the waves to ride during this period of time. So it's looking at yourself in a new way. Aries, deconditioned of the unconscious, your individual unconscious. You're going to be looking at yourself in a different way. You want to be going forward, doing things in a different way, because the way you see yourself, your self-identity, is not going to be soul conditioned, or you're going to, by the cultural, societal stuff. You're not going to be reacting to the same stuff as you did before. You really are going to want to express. You want the freedom and independence to express and to discover or recover your true intrinsic identity. Okay? And then you're going to have to go through some shedding of this egocentric belief system. You know, the barriers, the egocentric barriers, emotional, physical, and spiritual barriers you're creating between yourself and source, because those beliefs are not real. Those egocentric stuff are man-made stuff. or fear-based stuff. You see what I mean? That you're holding on to. So, or you're projecting the ideal outside of you and getting caught up on a delusion. You begin to worship some celebrity or something. You know what I mean? Or people with the belief worshiping a figment of, you know, a character outside of themselves, Jesus or Buddha or whoever. All of that is delusion, because they are only representing symbolically the truth of the archetype that exists in you. So a lot of people still look on the outside, you know, and that's where they catch up in delusion, you know, worshiping something outside of themselves as the ultimate meaning, yeah, that they should be looking for inside. So you're gonna have this with the Mercury going through Pisces, okay, and then you got Jupiter squaring Neptune. So there's going to be a tension within beliefs and spiritual growth and development, what you believe source to be, what you think spiritual growth and development is. Are you actually spiritually growing and developing in the way that is natural to your soul, or are you getting caught up in some contrived idea, you know, still driven by the ego? You know, these are going to be the things, you know what I'm saying? Jupiter in Sagittarius is going to be about, you know, expanding your consciousness to start to begin to see yourself in a more of a cosmological, metaphysical, or philosophical context. You see what I'm saying? And you know, the thing with Jupiter, you see, this energy reflects a continual expansion within consciousness. Okay, so and Jupiter correlates with the issue of being true, or correlates being true and honest with yourself, or symbolic of truth and honesty. Yeah, and it needs to realize the truth, as I said, in a philosophical, cosmological, and metaphysical way. You know, either one of those ways. So you're gonna have to be true with yourself. You have to be in truth and honesty with what beliefs you're holding on to. Are they enabling you to expand your consciousness, or are you remaining contracted because you are fearing that honesty it takes? You see what I mean? To look into yourself deeper, and the fear that can come up where, you know, the ego, you know, letting go of these egocentric, emotional, and you know, physical and spiritual barriers. Okay. You're gonna have to, you know, gonna be afraid of letting go of these ideas. That's not true. You know, you're gonna have to face up that you may have been deluding yourself. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's a deep thing. It's deep. It's gonna be deep. You know, it's getting deeper. You know, and the emotions, you're not gonna be able to kind of like, ignore them. You see? So this is the kind of theme I'm giving you. You know, about this. You know, what's coming up here, and I think I've gone into it a little bit longer than I wanted to. Because I said I wanted to continue with the Animus Anima, because what are archetypes? And as I've said, you know, nature is a mirror or a reflection of these archetypes within inside of you. The archetypes of the star signs. These are all archetypes, ruling structures within your consciousness. Okay, you know, through the law of correspondence, the 12 signs of what we call the zodiacus, the wheel of life, you know, corresponds with the 12 constellations, and it also corresponds with the 12 cranial nerves in your brain. Okay, the circle represents the wholeness of your psyche before it was divided and separated, okay, into either or, the conscious or the unconscious, or masculine and feminine. So when you look at a zodiac, you're dealing with the wheel, and the circle represents the wholeness of your psyche, the origin of you before you got into the division and the split and the separation. But all of that is part of creation, the necessary process of creation, you know. So this whole thing about relationship is operating on different levels simultaneously, because the animus and the anima, you know, the masculine and the feminine, you see, this stuff, as I said, is what is being projected outside of thyself onto the other. So I said I was going to go into more of the feminine, the animus, you know, the masculine figure in the woman's psyche, and then I was going to go and explain some more about the masculine psyche. So all of what's happening with the astro weather, this is what it's all about too, because you got to tap into the emotional aspect of you. But if you're going to understand the animus and the anima, you got to understand that the animus is related to the thinking, the conscious, the light of consciousness, and the anima represents the unconscious, the feeling, emotional aspect or intelligence, which deals with the subconscious, which is also the unconscious. And then you got the light of consciousness, the thinking, the conscious awareness, the thinking faculty or the thought faculty. That is the masculine. Okay, so there needs to be a harmony between the thought and the emotions, or the thoughts and feelings, because emotions and feelings are like two sides of the same coin. Okay, but I'm not going to go into breaking that down too much now. I'll do that maybe another show. But you can simplify and understand that, you know, the masculine is like the conscious, the conscious awareness, the light of conscious awareness. The masculine is the light of conscious awareness. And then the feminine represents the emotional aspect of our consciousness, which is related to the subconscious or the unconscious. Okay? So if you're very highly emotional, your subconscious is wide open. Okay, to be, you know, impressed upon, and it's to be directed by the light of consciousness, the masculine, what's impressed upon the subconscious. So you see how there has to be a unity when the two become one, thought and feeling. Okay, within the heart, this is when one's body is full with light, and plus this is how you create and manifest. You see what I'm saying? So it's about the responsibility for what we are drawing into our life experience. When a woman's having a relationship with the masculine, you know, outside of her, as a man symbolizing the archetype of the masculine she has in herself, she needs to look into herself and make adjustments at that level before, you know, instead of what you are conditioned to do or encouraged to do is to project and cuss out there and blame and curse all this whatnot. You know, women doing a lot of this stuff towards the men. Men do it too. And some things is like when I do talk about the things that women need to kind of be aware of, is as if to say, you know, they don't want you to talk about that. They'll deflect that and say, but the men do it too. And the thing is, it's like if you're dealing with balancement and you only want one side of it to understand itself, women always want to talk about the men and how they need to fix up. Them after, you know, them after this, them after that. But the rise of the feminine isn't about the rise of the feminine to overpower the masculine. So you're doing the same thing of whatever was happening before. You see, that's when a woman's gone into her ego. Because a lot of women have big ass egos. All right? Let's just be real with it. A lot of women have big ass egos. Huge, humongous. And we chat about men having big egos. We're not saying men don't have egos. Yeah? But the thing is, it's like when I say women have some big ass egos, it's like, you know, just let's have, oh, well, just stay on that for about 2 seconds and let's go back to the men, shall we? You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's like, the reason why it's so important to kind of chat about that, because women know women got big egos. You know what I'm saying? So why is it that, you know, women knows that they got big egos, but it's hush hush, like it doesn't have any contribution to the imbalancement or the issues taking place between the communication between them and the man, okay? Men and women. You can't always just chat about the men having an ego and you don't want to look into yourself and see, oh shit, man, yours is bigger than both of them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because a lot of women have been conditioned to actually believe that, look, they've been deceived that they don't even have an ego. That's the man's arena. So this is why when it's talking about the rise of the feminine in the context of balancing the masculine and a masculine balancing with the feminine, that's what it's about. But you see, with the female ego, with the goddesses and all of this and I'm a that and, you know, dressing up in the costume, yeah, costumes, you know, how you believe a goddess most probably should look and all of that stuff. I mean, that's a lot of that's female ego, y'all. the self-image, how you want to perceive yourself, but emotionally you ain't been dealing with those insecurity patterns or the emotional security patterns that you have. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying these things not to have a go at women, but to bring something into focus so it can be looked upon, because you cannot address something you're denying exists. You see what I mean? You can't become a balancement to something when you got an imbalancement in yourself, but you just want to talk about, you know, what's going on in somebody else's eye, but you don't want to look what's going on in your own. You know what I mean? So this is the context I'm bringing it in. And I think it's very important to kind of talk about this because, you know, it's just some crazy stuff going down, man. Holy stuff, you know. And because you don't understand the archetypes, you're looking outside of yourself and seeing images of men and women. And you're projecting onto those images and not realizing these are representations of your archetypes. If you see an image of a man and a woman, just a picture, okay? That's representing the archetype of the wholeness, the union that needs to take place within oneself, between the animus and the anima. You know what I mean? But folk like to project and also want to project their ideals out onto others and have others have to live up to their ideals. And when others disappoint them, the person, you see, then you get all of this disappointment and, oh, you know, all this emotional fallout and all of that business, you see. And that's because you're getting caught up in delusions. You don't understand that. You don't understand that you're not flesh, blood, and bone. You are more than that. And every man is representing the masculine archetype within a woman, and everything feminine is representing the feminine aspect inside of the man. Okay? So I was talking last Tuesday saying how the animus also relates the masculine, okay? The masculine principle in a figure in a woman's psyche, the animus, also correlates to her breathing. It also is associated with the breathing and the problems with breathing. Asthma, for example, may be one indication of a new phase in coming to terms with the animus. The primitive male figures like giants, especially if associated with the underworld, represents for the conscious feminine ego the animus. You know, the malformed or partly animal, yeah, you know, indicating an early stage of its development. You notice how a lot of women do perceive men like beasts. And not realizing this is your own animus, the way you're looking inside. I'm not saying men do not behave in ways that, you know, need to be, wow, you know, really looked on. And I'm not saying there doesn't need to be no transformation in that. But you got to understand, most of the stuff you project outside is reflecting what's going on inside of you. And more time we're looking in the wrong direction for the solution. We got to look into ourselves and make the change inwardly so that can be manifested and reflected outwardly. You see what I'm saying? But we're trying to do the thing the other way around, you know, and it ain't gonna work. You see? So what you will get is more distortion. More distortion. You see? If you don't want to check yourself. You know, there's a saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I think a lot of women need to really take that up on board. Men and women need to take that up on board. But I'm referring to the female here because women seem to believe they don't have an ego and they're not operating from their ego and they're not so identified with their ego. They're more identified and have been tricked to believe, to be deceived that they don't have one. I'm telling you, this is why it can take women years, you know, to actually come to certain levels of maturity that they need to have in themselves. I mean years. Usually it takes women when they're now in their 50s and 60s. Ooh, now you're starting to kind of get a little sensible. You know, now you're going to realize that your emotional outburst and the way you were going on was all based on your ego. And you not wanting to take responsibility for your emotional, you know, insecurity patterns. You know, the emotional patterns of security issues that you have. You know what I mean? And we all have it to various degrees. But if you're consciously working on yourself, you're going to have that less than others. You're going to be more centered in the source within yourself rather than depending upon, you know, external validation. You know what I mean? Women really, you know, get groomed on by that because the ego, the self-image needs external validation. You know, oh, yo, sister, you look so fine. Oh, ooh, you're here. No, women saying it to other women, you know, oh, that dress you're wearing looks so fine. You could have a whole, like, 2-hour conversation just on superficial stuff with a woman. Yeah? Just superficial stuff. And remember, you see how I'm talking. I'm not saying men don't do this. Yeah? So don't come with all of that, oh, you're talking about the women again. You know what I mean? It's like, look, you got to talk about the women. See what I'm saying? You can't just talk about the men and ignore the other aspect of your own self and what quality of relationship you're having with it. You see, you can't. You cannot. Well, you can, but to your own detriment. You see what I'm saying? And I think, you know, the whole thing about ego about the men, I think that's really been overdone. Yet the women facing their own egos and dealing with their own egocentric, you know, emotional, physical and spiritual barriers and separation and illusions that they've got up, you know, it needs to be addressed. And you got this issue where a lot of women are in such fear, they don't realize that that is really more where they're coming from, not with love. They're not coming from the love, the lit up woman. They're coming from fear. They're always going to think in a fear-based way, not from, you know, love and security in themselves. So their minds are creating a lot of what they, you know, their worst nightmares to take place. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of women may be also projecting onto men the issues they've had with their fathers. Yeah, the issues they've had with their fathers. You hear a thing about men and their issues they have with their mothers. Oh, he's looking for his mother and stuff. That's which is stupid. Not all men are looking for a mother when they're looking to hook up with a woman. Yeah, a female. But a lot of women have father issues, big time. They have issues with the father. And then they project what issue they have with the father onto the man, or that man must not be like how their father was. I'm not going to go through it, that, you know, but that's their stuff. And that puts a lot of pressure on a man just to be himself. He's got to be making sure that he don't remind her of whatever issues she has with her father that she has not resolved. Women got a lot of issues with their dad, okay? And some women have positive connections with their actual father, and actually their issues they end up having is with their mother more than their father. So you got to realize, you got to look in and see where this stuff's coming from. You know what I mean? Because the ego in the woman is really fat, man. It's fat. So, and women like to see, you know, when you're looking at things, you know, the man's the beast. Oh, he's an animal. You know, that's her malformed or partly animal, you know, the indicating on a, you know, it's the early development stage of her own animus that needs transformation. You see what I mean? So we can even take on, look, women chat about the devil. Oh, the man's a devil. You know what I mean? He's a devil. And the thing is like, you know, you got these different archetypes. Pan, you got Loki and the Odin type of mythology. You got the underworld fire spirits, because fire is masculine, okay? Water is feminine, you know? Air is masculine, earth is feminine, you know? Meaning the internal is receptive, okay? You get certain women who just want to say, I'm more masculine, you know, I feel more masculine, you know? And they're going to have anima problems, you know, with their femininity. It's going to be too much, you know, over conscious thinking and little or insufficient feminine feeling. They're going to have more masculine thinking and insufficient feminine feeling. That's when a woman is now imbalanced. She's now just got a masculine ego, basically. Masculine conscious ego, while she's killed the feminine off, her femininity off, and thrown a corpse in the back room, you know, in her mind. And, you know what I mean? She doesn't want to look at that room. And then I think I said about this the other time. And the masculine in her is where she gets the key and the bridge to open that door, look at that, you know, what she's done to herself, and revive her femininity. You see what I mean? But so the masculine operates as the light, okay, that takes her across the bridge from the conscious to the unconscious, so she can become an integrated being. You see what I'm saying? And the feminine operates in the same way for the man. So the masculine becomes the guiding spirit in the underworld, you know what I'm saying, for the feminine, you know. Within, you got as I said, you got the satyrs, the devil, the Pan, the underworld fire spirits, which represent this male figure within the Mother Earth side of the woman's nature. You always hear about Mother Earth. Well, she's got those masculine. You got you know, you've got the masculine representation. Okay, the guiding that are become the associated, I should say. You know what I mean? Within the Mother Earth side of the woman's nature, you got these you got the masculine aspect as a figure associated with the guiding souls to the underworld, you know, guiding the inner spirit, initiating it into the realm of the unconscious. So all of this is dealing with what the woman has to actually face. You know, she's got to deal with this stuff. You know, what it would represent is a highly developed and clearly distinguished animus, a godlike and therefore capable of transforming the inner life. Yeah, this is what a woman has to get to in how she relates to her animus. She's got to transform her animus into a godlike figure. You understand what I'm saying? She's got to be the one to do that transformation work in herself. All right? Because the masculine is, if you want to talk about it, still going to be the god, and the feminine is going to be the goddess, so to speak. And therefore, this is what she has to face to be capable of transforming her inner life. So you get in mythology, you know what I mean, Asa and a Set. You got Asa, that's the divine masculine within the feminine, okay? A Set is the divine feminine within the, you know what I mean, within the masculine ego, right? You got in the Greek Dionysus, Dionysus. You got you know, in fact, you have women in ancient times. They would you got certain masculine deities which would be served by women who would dance forensically, you know what I mean, ecstatically, in order to become possessed by that god, you know. So in a psychological language, in order to rouse the inner masculine animus from the depths of the unconscious, you see. So you get some women who have more of a positive relationship with the animus inside of her, and you can feel that as a man, that woman's radiating more positive energy rather than the lower, slower, fear-based energy that she's carrying in herself based upon this you know, this negative association relationship she's having with the animus. She hasn't transformed it yet. You know what I mean? The animus is an elemental and unruly force, not at all easy to control, and guidance into the unconscious can itself take the negative form of being lured into the pit. Okay, as you know, Orpheus or the Pied Piper, you know, lured men and beasts, you know, away, lured them astray. In confrontation with the animus, a great deal of psychic energy is taken up and may be used in inner turmoil if not directed purposefully. So a woman can end up having, if she's not dealing with this correctly, she ends up having a negative animus, yeah, which is, I've explained before, is where a woman is basically, you know, what you're getting is where a woman has too much male conscious thinking, okay, with insufficient feminine feeling, so she becomes imbalanced in herself. You see, the whole thing is about balance, okay? The whole thing is about wholeness, balance, and balancement, yeah, or balance, because you're dealing with two sides of one coin, you see. So, you know, let me go on a little bit more here. Women have no difficulty letting the imagination run on, especially about dark strangers. And though this must not be blocked, it is only the beginning of grappling with the animus. You notice women are very imaginative, okay? You know how, you know, she wants to know how he thinks. Where does he get his opinions from? Whether they are secondhand or truly individual, you know, and distinguishes between the different sets of opinions fed into him. Which one comes from the father, the husband, yeah, or the newspaper, or other groups of people, church, etc. What does he really think about them? Is he just one of the herd? What does he think of himself? This is like women think about, you know, what does he think of you, the woman? What does he want or demand? This is the thinking process going on in the woman, right? When she's dealing with the masculine aspect, which is the thinking aspect, the animus, the masculine aspect in herself, right? You know, so you got, you know, it's like, what does he want or demand of you? What right has he? You know, all this stuff. What are his plans anyway? And, you know, and in particular, what can he do for you in return? These are the things a woman is concerned about when she's dealing with the animus in herself, right? And how she will project that and what she's concerned about in a man. You know, the business of getting to know him may seem a bit awkward and artificial, though not much more so than getting acquainted with a difficult person in the outside world. But later, with particular difficulties and crisis, the inner dialogue can become valuable and rewarding. Fiction, drama, etc. consists of this creative interplay, right? But it is just as necessary to be imaginative about the creative work of the living, of which fiction, I should say, is a byproduct of. So the attraction which women have often, right? What women, see, I'm talking about this relationship with the masculine, yeah? It even goes into what a woman's attracted to in a man, okay? The attraction women often feel for weak or even crippled men could derive from seeing in the outside world a reflection of their own inferior masculine side, okay? The animus, though, this is also related to the mother love, okay? So women, as I said earlier on, you know, that mother love is the feminine aspect, but it can also be related to the inferior function of which the child is also a symbol. And actual children sometimes suffer from contamination with the mother's inner psychological animus problem. You hear that? You know what I mean? You can have, you know, you can have children more times, sometimes suffer from contamination with the mother's inner psychological animus problem. What she projects on the children, because, you know, he may remind her, the son or the child or the girl may remind her of the man, you know, she's having difficulty with, and, you know, project all of that stuff, unresolved stuff she has inside of herself onto the child, onto the children. You look just like your papa, you know, and them thing there, you know, and so I'm saying all of this to say, listen, man, this all starts within you, and I think it's good, it's important for women to look into this stuff for themselves. The animus anima, look it up, check it out. You know what I'm saying? Because it plays out in the sign of Libra, which is about relationship, diverse relationships. Okay? So so I've said all of this. I said this with a woman. I'll give you a little ease up. So I'm going to chat about the man, the anima, or the female shadow figure in man's psyche. The anima is the mother, the sister, the wife, the daughter to the masculine consciousness in the inner world of the psyche. Remember, all of this is about your inner world, right? The youth or infantile man has a maternal anima, which transforms into the younger figure when he matures. This figure is a personification of the heart rather than the head. You see, in the woman, it's about the head. Okay, how she's got to connect her heart with her head and have that harmonious relationship between the head and the heart. Okay, that's the anima. That's the animus in the woman. With the man, it's the heart. The anima is the heart. Okay, so the figure is the personification of the heart rather than the head. The feelings, and especially the feelings of being alive, which gets lost sometimes. It is the source of receptiveness and sensitivity. This is where a man is cultivating his own self, right? The animal within himself. And if you notice, the positive aspect of it is where a man, his relationship with the anima, as he matures, it turns young. It gets younger, all right? It's not supposed to stay the maternal, the mother, because that can make a man infantile. Keep him infantile. He's a boy. He can't do certain simple things for himself, right? He doesn't know how to flipping even, what, boil rice, man. He don't know how to boil water. Can't flipping, you know, even boil porridge. Now, we know there's a lot of us as black men, we and other men, your mother did a good job. We know how to look after ourselves, you know, but you still have certain men, they don't even know how to boil water. As well as you have some women, they don't know how to do that either. Yeah, but what I'm talking about is when a man is kept infantile. He's infantile. He's always looking for the woman to do this. Where's my shirt? You iron my shirt. You know, like he ain't got no, oh my gosh, she doesn't do certain stuff with it. You see, this is how some men get messed up anyway, because they end up becoming dependent on the woman for certain basic things that she can manipulate him with it. You know what I'm saying? Because he's got this infantile, he's got this maternal anima. He's still looking for a mother. You see what I'm saying? So this is where the man's issues can come into, when he's not dealing with the feeling aspect in himself and having a maturer, you know, developed relationship with his feminine, the feminine aspect within him, his anima. Okay, so you go. Just as a woman needs patience to carry and nurture her young, so the anima is a source of the patience required to nurture the seeds of future development. Just as women spin fantasies about their offspring, so the anima spins fantasies. This is what goes on in the man, right? The anima is operating as the fantasies being spun within himself, which means that a man can't make any contact with his own unconscious, which expresses itself in imaginative symbols without some recognition of his own feminine qualities. This is part of the feminine openness and emptiness, emptied of conscious purpose especially, which enables the unconscious to manifest itself without interference. Symbols relevant to this anima is the nymphs, water maidens, you got Valkyries, you got Oshun Yemenya in the Yoruba. You see what I'm saying? I already mentioned Aset. You've got Heteru, if we're going to use those terms now. You know what I mean? These are all still symbolic of the animus. The anima in the man. Okay? So you got the nymphs, hence you got nymphomaniacs, nymphs, you know what I mean? Water maidens, you know, etc. These, you know, connected with the wellspring of life. Its origins and power of regenerating and revitalizing the man, a source of new, fresh possibilities. Okay, you know what I mean? This is why, look, many men don't want no miserable woman, and this is why women are drawn to more mature men, and men are attracted to younger women. And I'm not talking about younger as in just, you know, some teenager and stuff, even though you see that stuff going. I mean in younger also within the woman who has that balance in herself and she is youthful in herself. You know, man, a woman can be damn depressing, you know what I'm saying, if she ain't got no life and lit up. And the way the man is to identify with the anima, the quality of him integrating the anima, the feminine aspect within himself, is what brings him more youthfulness and life. When you see a lot of these men who get married or they with a woman and they used to have all this, you know, zest for life, and some of them, after them having a relationship now, it's like them just get drained from all of that. And then become very miserable. And then man, them get sick. And them just sit upon the couch, and them go work and come home and sit upon couch and get up and go back. You know what I mean? They can become very dull men. Because again, you can get certain things, as I said, when you're dealing with the material, when you're dealing with the maternal, that maternal anima in a man is something that has to be transformed into the young maiden in order for him to be, you know, oh my gosh, for him to have more, for him to feel regenerated and revivified. You know what I'm saying? And this is related to the feminine aspect in him. You know? So it's like the man's source of new, fresh possibilities when he's tuned into that feminine, revitalizing energy in himself. And symbols are often threefold in nature. You may have heard about the three graces or the three muses. Or, you know, if you're into mythology, you would have heard of the three Gorgons, okay? Or the three muses. Because the anima can manifest in various ways. It has different faces, different aspects, some positive, some negative, thus embodying the feminine as a group. The threefold nature of the symbol is often related to the three phases of the moon, okay? Hence why I think a lot of women get caught up in this moon thing and don't realize really what that's about. You know what I mean? They don't, you know, a lot of women who are dealing with their ego, they're always looking on how to empower themselves in a way where it's like a competition, or, you know, it's against the man to have power over the masculine and stuff. Not to have balance between the masculine and the feminine, but to have power over. So when you hear the rise of the feminine, that can get misconstrued in this, you know, in certain women's egos. And then all of a sudden you see a lot of these women, I'll just say it, what I'm saying. A lot of these women who even call themselves goddesses and stuff. I mean, from when I was years ago, back 30 years ago, I remember with all of this stuff, man. A lot of these women They were lesbians and they were bisexual. They didn't like men, okay? But you're going to walk around as a man and say, yo, goddess, yes, empress, and all of that type of stuff. Huh? Not realizing that these women got some inner imbalances going on. And a lot of what you see going on is when you take this term goddess, a lot of these women do that. And it's just their ego. It's just all feeding their ego. It's not about doing the spiritual work in themselves where they can find a harmony between the masculine and feminine within themselves so they can actually have harmonious relationships and feel comfortable with the man. Even inspire him and help him to be transformative. You see what I'm saying? So he integrates and becomes younger, fresher in himself, because that's the impact that a healthy woman can have on a man, okay? Who's healthy in himself and receptive to, acknowledging and integrating his feminine aspect of himself. You see what I'm saying? You got a lot of women just out there to destroy dudes. You see what I mean? Yet they're going on like they're the victim of all kind of mannerisms of stuff and feel that justifies why they want to turn around and just always want to, look at men in a very degrading way, but you want to be respected and looked up to by a man. Don't you see the madness in that? Huh? You see? And don't want to take the responsibility for the problems you're having in your relationships. You aren't going with a man. Yeah? If you are a healthy woman and balanced within yourself, you're going to be attracted to a healthy, strong man. He's going to be attracted to a nice, healthy, life-loving woman. Not no miserable piece of sinting that's always, crapping on a man's head about he's the problem and everything. It's him. She doesn't contribute to none of it. That's imbalancement, man. Anyway, you got the full moon. The full moon, the threefold nature of the symbols of the feminine can be related to the three phases of the moon. The full moon represents the natural fecund mother who provides physically. Then, as we have tonight, a dark moon, okay? Dark moon, which is the shadow aspect of the moon, right? This represents the unnatural dark mother who sometimes, and when I say dark, man, let's just understand we're talking about shadow. We're not chatting about black. We're talking about a state of when something's not lit up, okay? We're talking about that which has not got the light of understanding or knowledge. You see what I'm saying? It's a shadow. It's shadow. It's ignorance. You see what I'm saying? Fear. Yeah? That negativity that deals with separation, doesn't see the connection. You know what I mean? The interconnection with all things. So just clarifying, when I'm using the term dark, I'm talking about what represents that which is unlit, that which is shadow. You see what I'm saying? Because you got to understand this stuff and not get mistake when you hear words, mistake it for meaning stuff you're caught up with in your head. You know what I mean? With all these biases and all these limited ideas, you're going to jump to words. You're reacting to words. You know what I mean? Rather than gaining an insight to what does this word mean and what does it symbolize in context with what is being presented to you. Yeah? So don't get all reactive to certain words. Okay? Better look to get an insight to what those words mean. All right? So you don't have to be holding on to your misidentification and whatever you think the word represents to you in a negative way. And you're missing a lot of information, okay? You're missing a lot of insight when you just hold on to one meaning to something. So the dark moon is the unnatural, represent the dark mother who sometimes, because not all women are natural mothers. They don't feel motherly. They don't feel maternal. Yeah? So that's where I'm saying with the unnatural as well. So the unnatural dark mother who sometimes offers the possibility of transformation, but only through suffering and deprivation, right? So this is about, you have to understand the archetypes of mothers. Mother is an archetype. So is sister. You know what I mean? So is wife and so is daughter. They're archetypes. You got to understand the stages that the masculine and the feminine grow through or develop through. And when they're fully developed, when you got a proper, mature, developed anima and animus is gonna be that which complements, you see what I mean, the other aspect of you, whether you're a man or a woman. Yeah. So you got that dark side of the female, you got the dark side of the masculine, you got the side of the mother aspect of the archetype, which would nourish and nurture, but you got that shadow side that would put you through suffering, man. Drive you mad. Out to destroy you. You know what I mean? But it also becomes a crisis points for transformation within yourself. You see what I'm saying? So, and the new moon, the youthful newborn anima. We're getting a new moon tomorrow. All right? So this is quite relevant here. Because the new moon, okay? So the youthful newborn anima who replaces the mother anima and so releases the youth from her archaic power which threatened to bind him in perpetual immaturity. Now, listen to what I just said there. Let me just say that again. The youthful newborn anima, symbolized by the new moon, who replaces the mother anima and so releases the youth from her archaic power which threatened to bind him in perpetual immaturity. You notice you hear a lot about the mother archetype a lot. You notice that? Yeah, the mother archetype. The father, you hear about the father, you see? But when you're dealing with these kind of mythologies, which are the symbolic stories of how the archetypes, the animus and the anima, is operating within the psyche of the man and the woman, and through imagination being the codes, the keys in, or the bridge, yeah, that which acts like the key or the bridge to enable one to have access, man or woman to have access to their unconscious, so they can liberate, yeah, themselves from all the erroneous conditioning there, the negative aspect and relationship they're having to the masculine or the feminine themselves, in order to perform the work of alchemy, inner alchemy, to transform, all right, and transmute, you know, this lead into gold, okay? And so you'll notice that you have in a fairy tale where you got this young maiden, she's held prisoner in the tower by some old mother, old crow, you know what I mean? Yeah, who's jealous of and you notice that older women can be jealous of younger ones. You know how it goes? Yeah. But the old crow represents that, the mother principle that needs to be transformed. You see what I'm saying? To be rejuvenated into the young maiden. And the masculine principle, which comes along to have to rescue the young maiden out from the tower, who she's being held prisoner by the mother. All right? But the shadow aspect, the negative aspect of the mother. Okay? And he's the masculine archetype that can, what? Transform that and liberate his anima now. Yeah, transform her, liberate her so he can liberate himself. Because that's the other aspect of him he has to reunite with. So you find all of this stuff about the animus and the anima being displayed symbolically in the fairy tales or the mythologies. Okay? You know, you got your Sleeping Beauty, you got your Cinderella stuff, you got your Rapunzel and all of that. You know what I mean? You got these stories, man. This is why women really love the imagination and the stories. But it's how they're using these stories and what they're using to create within themselves. You see what I'm saying? Nightmares or, you know, or magnificent creations, you know, of beauty, love, and, you know what I'm saying? Harmony and balance and peace and all of that. You know what I mean? And then you got the man with the fantasies, you know. Just notice how, you know, women want to know what a man's fantasy is. When really she's asking, really it's about his relationship with his anima. Because through, you know, how he's using that to transform. And how you have to use your imagination and how powerful your imagination is. Because actually fantasies is a distortion of the imagination. Because fantasies don't come into reality. They remain as fantasies. But the imagination, you can bring through the imagination, manifest, materialize, manifest into, yeah, your reality you want to experience, what you know, working through the imagination. But fantasy, when you're fantasizing, you're not dealing with nothing real. It remains a fantasy. So the fantasy is kind of a lower octave or usage of the imagination. The imagination is to bring into manifestation. Yeah, that which I imagine. Yeah, and when you look at imagination, when you're dealing with you're dealing with the self. Yeah, the truth, the soul. Magi is magician. Okay, a nation is birth. So you have an inner magician as your soul that actually gives birth to its creation from the inside out, based upon how you think, how you feel, what ideas you're holding towards yourself, what is your self-concept, what is the relationship you're having with, the masculine or feminine aspect of your nature as a man or a woman. This is all what is being created from the inside out. It sets up the outer reflection of it. You see what I mean? So dealing with continuing what I'm saying here. So you're seeing, this youthful newborn anima who replaces the mother anima, and so releases the youth from her archaic power, which threatened to bind him in perpetual immaturity. And you find men who are very caught up, big men with their mother, mama. I mean, you can even have some woman, you get some mothers who get jealous of the fact that their son now is, in a relationship with a woman or getting married. And you see all those little stupid plays. This is the reason why you get the jokes about the mother-in-law or the father-in-law. You know what I'm saying? When people get married or get into the relationships, how the mother's jealous of her son's girlfriend because she's taken second place. You know what I'm saying? And how being caught up with this mother anima too long, it does make a man remain immature and keep him infantile. He may present himself out the street like him a big man. Yeah, that's the ego, that's the self-image. But he's still dealing with the mother anima. He's still a little boy. You know what I mean? He's still a little boy. You have listen. You know what I mean? You have man. Them looking for mama, their mother. They now look for the lover and the inspiration in that new fresh, that fresh relation with the feminine, within himself. Enough of them man get catch up with mama, all them sitting there. So they don't have an emotion, a mature way of even expressing their emotions. It's like you're still relating to their emotions like they're a child. You know what I mean? Going into these moods and ready or not. Just because a woman's got a big body doesn't mean she's matured inside. It's the same thing with a man. You know what I'm saying? So they have this immaturity style. And if you start dealing with, if you get caught up in this mother business, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't appreciate and love your mother if you have a good mother in that way. But you come to a point where, you're a man and you're not looking no mother. Yeah. You have to grow beyond all of that. And obviously you move to the fresh. Yeah. You want a fresh, healthy woman. Fertile and everything. You see? But it's not just about the fresh youthfulness in age. You got to understand I'm talking about quality and energy and development of the feminine, which is always that which enables to give form to the life the man inseminates her with. Yeah, because the feminine is a positive feminine is what enables a man to manifest his dreams. Yeah, she gives the material to give form to his ideas, his dreams. You see what I'm saying? And it's a young and fresh, fertile woman that does that. Not an old, barren woman. You see what I'm saying? And this is no disrespect to mothers and stuff like that, man. You got to understand archetypes. Eh? Go and do your studies, man. Don't just hold on to your biased mental opinions and, running away from something that juke you because it's bringing something up. And you want to project your ignorance upon what you don't understand. And you're feeling you're getting personally attacked by something that triggers something in you. You're hearing something being said. Don't go out like that. Don't be no flap up business like that. You know what I mean? Have some have some integrity and, backbone, and begin to look at things in a broader way. Don't always get all defensive and, you're feeling you're attacked. Because, like women, you can't tell them nothing without them feeling them, A lot of women can't get into that, very defensive. And what you're saying to them, man has to equally understanding himself as well. But what you get is more time the woman want to deflect that and want to focus all attention upon the man and deflect her responsibility she have within herself for what she needs to do, the work she needs to do, and the quality of relationship she's having with the man is the quality. It starts with the relationship she's having with her inner animus, as I said also with the man. So look at that, right? So the new moon is the youthful newborn, and we're having fresh energy. It's also returning fresh energy in order for you to feel alive. It's like the fountain of youth, isn't it? Everybody wants to feel young and fresh, isn't it? You don't want to feel old and decrepit. See? You want to feel young and fresh. See what I'm saying? But you see, a lot of people's limited beliefs is what also makes them deteriorate in ways that they don't need to deteriorate in that way. You know what I mean? You're seeing people of 70 being more active and so forth than other people at that age. Yeah? Because they might look after themselves. It's their inner spirit, how they're relating to the inner spirit within them. You see what I'm saying? How they're relating, how the woman's relating to the inner masculine spirit and how the man is relating to the inner feminine, spirit in himself. This all is going to reflect in your health and your well-being and how you perceive life and yourself, you see, and how you relate to, the opposite aspect of you. Is it going to be healthy or is it going to be a flipping drama, Is it going to be toxic? You understand? And too much of this toxic projection women want to put on and project onto men and not deal with the issue at source level, So I'm saying all of this and thing. So, symbology, you have to go in and deal with this anima and the archetypes and so forth. Do your work, man. You know what I mean? You can bring water to somebody, but they have to pick up the water and drink it if they want their thirst quenched. I can only bring the water to you, but can't drink it for quench your thirst for you. So then you got color symbolism, color white. Now you have to deal with symbolism. Don't get caught up on this color white and black and thing. You have to understand the symbology of these things. Don't take them things literally on the surface in what we here dealing with now, like you're dealing with race and so forth. The color white, because of its association with the moon, you see, is often connected with symbols of the anima, okay, the feminine. This includes white birds, white animals, etc. For example, the white serpent or the lady who turned into a white worm at night. This is one of them Brian Stoker. You see them people when them making their movies and them horror movies and all them things. One of them Brian Stoker movies. But it's symbology. You have to even look at movies. You got to look at the stuff you're watching and decode these symbols before you. I cannot watch a movie without decoding it. Because I'm not here just to sit there and be programmed. You see what I'm saying? All right? The more conscious you become of and aware of yourself, you're going to see through these things anyway. And you're going to see how it's through the symbolism in the imagery in the movies is how people will get conditioned. You see what I mean? How they're getting programmed because they don't know how to decode what they're watching. A picture says 1,000 words, yeah? That's what the real meaning about that is. So you get the white worm at night. It symbolizes basically the anima in a very undeveloped stage. You see what I mean? So, you got the white goddess and you got, the black goddess. And I know there's been a flip-flop with all of this as well. So you got to deal with this in more of the energy representations of what the archetypes are actually, alluding to or directing you to. You got to understand this is the inner meaning you need to understand in your psyche. If you take stuff literally, you miss it. Yeah? You miss the point, man. So the anima at a more refined stage of development would be the goddess energy. Okay? The princess enchanted by a spell, trapped in a castle, or otherwise in the clutches of the witch. You see, these are different. You see the archetypes going on with the feminine. Okay? The youthful positive anima is still trapped in the archaic maternal form. That's when you're getting the stories of a princess trapped in a tower, and you got this archaic maternal form, mother archetype, yeah, being the one keeping her hostage. You know what I'm saying? It's not always a, yeah, man. So you see what I'm saying? You know, you got to understand this stuff, and you know, and then you got the difficulties involved in rescuing her. You know, refers to the steps which need to be taken within the psyche in order to transform her. This is what the man goes through. This is why you always see the man, you know, the archetype, he's rescuing the damsel in distress. Yeah, the damsel in distress is the masculine archetype. You have women still chatting about them want them prince in shining armor. They want them prince, you know what I mean? Yeah, their knight, their prince to come rescue them. And they'll be 17 and they still chat about prince. Yeah, in shining armor for come and rescue them. Yeah? Big 70-year-old woman I chat about prince. For come and, you know, still caught up in the thing, but they're not realizing the work was supposed to be done in themselves. And they got caught up in a fantasy. They didn't know how to work with their imagination to liberate themselves. You see what goes on? Huh? So this is why it's very important, because where you're finding yourself now, you can't keep blaming and looking outside and, you know, spitting at the mirror. You know what I'm saying? Because you're only going to be spitting at the reflection of yourself. You know? So the difficulties involved in rescuing her, as I said, you got all of that in the narrative. You know? But so you got a positive and negative symbolism going on, you know? Just as with the Animus, you have it with the Anima. The Anima contains extremes and symbolic material, often indicates this. The priestess or fairy who initiates the hero may also be the witch who threatens to destroy or degrade him. In the, you know, these are things as how it can be. You got that switch. But let me just, because I'm going to have to wrap this up. So when a man has a well-integrated Anima, it enables the man to relate with flexibility and vitality. When the nature of the Anima is understood clearly and brought under conscious control, a man can express his feelings appropriately without sentimentality. And many even choose coldness when necessary, because woman also can be cold. So we have to know both the, you know, the light and the shadow aspect of a woman. Because this is where betrayal comes in. When you trust and then all of a sudden, you know, you experience betrayal. That goes into the Anima. Okay? After the shadow side of the personality has been fully accepted and integrated in youth, around the midpoints of life, just when the masculine attitudes are fully developed, but can start to get crusty, then is the moment ripe to come to terms with your feminine Anima. Now you have enough man that never done them thing. So they deteriorate as they get older. They don't rejuvenate and remain young and fresh because they're not dealing with this inner world. So men and women have to deal with their inner world, because your inner world becomes an outpicturing for what you end up being the outer world you're walking around in. You see, you're very magical beings, but you don't realize how magical you are because you believe you're just flesh, blood, and bone. You're holding on to those man-made, you know, decrepit beliefs and programs that all needs to be decoded from your unconscious, you see, to liberate the true self, the diamond self, you see. So if you succeed in assimilating, if a man succeeds in assimilating her qualities, right, into your all-male ego, it will show in vitality, subtlety, relatedness, and imagination. You will feel more in tune with nature, more flexible, flowing like water along paths of least resistance, turning answers to the wind and able to talk with conscious ambiguity rather than unconscious confusion. Facilation, ambivalence, facilation, ambivalence. In order to guide others, the qualities of nature are needed, a certain cunning and coldness and ability to betray. You see, the Anima in personal symbolism is the critical. All right, the Anima in personal symbolism that the analytical viewpoint, that is the critical masculine outlook, has grave limitations if left unchecked and unrelated to the anima as the personification of the man's feeling function. This is especially true in relationships where perfectly correct but utterly inappropriate thinking creeps in to sever and destroy those relationships, which are not usually served by discernment or objectivity, but by sympathetic feeling. A sense of value of what is important and what matters is needed, especially to combat the urge for reasonable arguments in matters of love, which are futile because irrelevant to this, because irrelevant to the situation. Yeah? Gosh, I hope you're understanding what I'm saying here. In order to experience the imagery of your own unconscious, all intellectual activity must be deferred and used to analyze and criticize later, rather than to be allowed to block the flow of the imagination. It may be helpful to pretend you are a woman daydreaming, like a male novelist who found, you know what I'm saying, he could only write in the first person as a woman, through his feminine shadow or alter ego. Sexual fantasies may have revealed some features of the anima, who can then be held by the imagination till she leads on down fresh paths to other transformations and visions. Basically, this is how you have to work through with the imagination and how it operates. The feminine anima operates within the masculine. Okay, so like women chasing when no actual women prove satisfactory may indicate searching in the wrong direction for the anima. This is about projections. Then you get women searching for men. They're searching, oh, no man's available. They're searching in the wrong direction. Men doing the same thing, wrong direction. You see what I mean? Because you need to deal with the anima, the relationship, and yourself. Okay? So, in saying all of that, the time has come to that point where I need to kind of, bring this to a close. And that was me now balance up the other side of the thing. I was chatting about the animus, and now I'm telling you about the anima. So, the things within the man, and the masculine, the feminine within the masculine ego, and the masculine within the feminine psyche. These are the things that need to be balanced off inside yourself. You see? Because it's about having a holistic relationship with yourself. You see what I'm saying? This is what it really essentially is about. And, what we don't really deal with in ourselves ends up becoming projected, or projection, onto the outside as a screen, which is, and then now we think that you're dealing with the mirror when it's all within. It all begins within. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, look here. I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna call it on this one. So I will see you, on the flip side. And I wish you and bid you all a peaceful, good shadow hour. And if there's anything, just listen back to this. Listen back to the recording. Anything you've missed, just listen back to it, okay? Because there's a lot of nuggets in there. If you can just do the little work to pull them out. You know what I'm saying? Do the little bit of work and pull out the nuggets, okay? And then, line up with what resonates with you to get clearer with yourself. So, on that note, y'all, I'm going to bid you a good shadow hour. And, have a restful shadow period. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Okay? Take good care, one and all.